So this week, your reading is the last part of chapter 6. We did the first part over week 10, so now we're going to read the last half of chapter 12, which starts at the top of page 145, where it says model the living room. Our main task today is to model some cabinetry, some built-ins for like the kitchen, dining, laundry type of areas. So these pages will walk you through that. And then we're also going to look at the Follow Me tool a little bit more closely. I believe we talked about it briefly in our first week. So we're going to get a little bit more practice with the Follow Me tool. And then there are just a couple of extra things at the end of the chapter that we'll go over at the end of the assignment. So if you go to the modules, you should see week 12 here now. And so exercise 12 to model the cabinetry and the crown molding. The crown molding is what we're going to use to practice the Follow Me tool. So we're going to use the model that we're already working on in class, so your exercise 11, just to save as for exercise 12. We're going to create the cabinetry for the laundry, kitchen, and dining areas, and the crown molding. So part 1 will just be the cabinetry. I've got a couple images here of some potential designs that you might choose for your cabinetry. You'll notice that these images have appliances, furniture, artwork. We're not worrying about that just yet. We're really just focused on the cabinetry for this part here. So these are just options, and then we will make a few pieces of cabinetry together as well. But we're not going to go through every single piece just because I want you to design your own cabinetry, and it would honestly take forever if I stood up here and went through and did the entire thing with you. So we're just going to do a couple pieces for practice, and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. The goal is to fill this entire wall here with cabinetry. So this little back area is kind of like the laundry room. That's what you're seeing here in this image. So it's really just what they have here is an upper cabinet with shelving. The kitchen area is going to come next, some example there, and then a dining area and kind of the entry, which you can kind of see in this image here. They've got some cabinets, maybe a built-in table, and it looks like maybe a full-height cabinet at the front. But again, these are just options. The point is just that I want you to fill the entire wall with cabinetry of your choice. And then also, I've got a reference here for you, just some typical casework dimensions for residential. So counter height is usually going to be about 36 inches, and that's to the top of the countertop. So your base cabinets are actually 34.5 inches, because the countertop is 1.5 inches. So all that adds up to 36 inches. There's a toe kick here. It's usually 4 inches high, 3 inches deep. So this is just going to be kind of what I'm going to base my cabinetry off of. Probably be good for you to base yours off of as well, because these are pretty typical dimensions. You'll usually have 18 inches between your countertop and your uppers, and then your upper cabinets can kind of vary depending on how large you want those to be. And then each kind of piece of your casework, like the cabinets and maybe the side panels, we're going to make those at 3/4 of an inch. Again, that's pretty typical. It's usually a piece of plywood and then plastic laminate on the side, or maybe melamine for the inside. So that's usually about 3/4 inch thick. And then when you have overhangs, those are usually 3/4 of an inch or 1 inch overhang. So just use these dimensions to kind of help you along. They are pretty typical for residential design. So let's go ahead and get started with these before we get into looking at part 2. So here I've got my exercise 11 up here that we can start to model off of. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn off a couple of things so that I can see inside here a bit better. So I think what I want to turn off is, I've already got my roof off, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off well, I don't really want to do both my floors. Maybe if you had a second floor, a separate tag for your second floor, that might be helpful to turn off. What you can also do is just temporarily hide things that are in your way. Tags are usually a really good layer to help you organize and be able to turn things on and off. But we can individually hide pieces that are in our way. So I could select my second floor here, right click and just hit hide, and that's going to temporarily hide it for me. And then I can always have it come back by going up to view and turning on hidden geometry and hidden objects. And then you'll again be able to select it, right click and unhide. So if your tags are nice and organized, and you can turn some off so that we're just seeing the first floor, great. Or you can also just right click and manually hide a couple of things. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that so that I have a nice clear view. So this little area back here is where that laundry is going to go. And then all throughout this area, the kitchen, the dining, and kind of that entry spot. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and look at maybe the kitchen, and we'll just go based off of what we see here. Looks like that's kind of what is drawn for our images that we have. So let's just go ahead and create a base cabinet and an upper cabinet here. A couple ways you could do it. I think I will just draw that exact profile that's in the instructions. I'm just going to go ahead and draw the profile of this base cabinet and the countertop and this upper cabinet, and then extrude it over. I'm actually going to get these pulled up on my other screen so I can look at them. All my sketches here. Alright. I'm just going to start on this wall to give myself a nice background. We're going to want to be on the untagged layer. Make sure that's your default or your active tag here. And so just using those dimensions, the typical dimensions that are in the assignment, I'm going to start to draw that profile. So I'm going to grab my pencil tool by clicking L on my keyboard. And then I'm looking at the dimensions here on my other screen. We're going up 36 inches, so take 36, enter. Now at the bottom, you can pull it across 24 inches, so either type 24, enter, or 2 foot, enter. Then again, I'll go up that 36 inches, and then across. And that should have given me a surface here. Then I'm going to go ahead and create my group now. I like creating groups to keep geometry isolated. And you can definitely create groups as early as you need, so that it's actually easier for me to just create a group based off of this one surface here and then work within the group rather than trying to model everything and then grabbing all of the elements and making a group based off that. So I'm going to go ahead and double click this surface here, right click, and make a group. And now I can double click into that and continue to work on this space that I'm just already in a group. I'm going to go ahead and carve out that toe kick area. And with that, I think I'm going to use some guidelines. So I'm hitting T on my keyboard to pull up the tape measure tool. And that toe kick is 3 inches deep and 4 inches tall. So remember, you can just click on a line, pull upward along that axis, type 4, enter. And that should give me that space there for that toe kick. So I'll find the intersection of my line and my guideline and just start to draw across that 3 inches and down the 4 inches. And now I can erase these little lines here. And now what I should be left with is the surface that matches the profile of that base cabinet. This does include the countertop actually, since I did 36 all the way to the top. So I think I'm actually going to lower this top line down 1.5 inches so that I'm just modeling the base cabinet here. So I guess that total then would be 34.5 inches for just your base cabinet. And now I can start to pull this across, and that'll start to give me whatever the length is that I want those base cabinets to be. You can do it a couple of ways. You can either stretch this across as far as you want and then go in and add the individual doors and carve out the inside, or you can just model one individual base cabinet for now and then just keep on copying that around as many times as you want. I will go ahead and just stretch this out maybe 5 feet. And again, you are designing however you would like here. Oops, I got lost. There I am. You know, another thing you might find helpful that we learned a few exercises ago was to create a section. Because maybe I want to be able to look straight in at these base cabinets, but I've obviously got a lot of things in the way. So maybe a section would be helpful for me here so that I can see a bit easier. So my section is already up here in my tools, but you should be able to find your section if you just go up in your menu bar, tools, and section plane. You can use this to create more of like floor plan views if you keep it here on the blue axis, or you can use your arrow keys just like we use with the rotate tool. If you use your arrow keys on the keyboard, you can move around whatever axis that you're on. And then once you find the axis you want, you hold down the shift key to keep that locked in place. And then you just click wherever you want your section to be. You can call it whatever, give it a symbol number if you'd like. But now all of that is gone away so that I can see my cabinetry a little bit easier. Alright. So this group here is my base cabinet. I'll go ahead and model my countertop right on top of that. So the countertop is 1.5 inches thick, and it overhangs the base cabinets by 1 inch. So again, I'm going to grab my pencil tool. I'm going to start at this top corner of my base cabinets. I'm not inside my base cabinet group anymore. I'm going to keep my countertops separate from my base cabinets just to help myself be a little bit more organized here. So I'll draw upward 1.5 inches. And then if our base cabinets were 24 inches deep and I want 1 inch overhang, I'm going to make this one 25 inches. Go back down 1.5 inches. around. And I'll double click that surface to grab the surface and all of its edges. And then I'm going to go ahead and make this one a group as well. And then I'll double click into it so that I can push pull it across the same length as my base cabinets. And if you hover over the surface of this base cabinet, you should be able to kind of lock with the same plane as it. And then depending on whatever your design is, if you're going to have more cabinets right up against here, you might leave it there. If you're not going to have any more cabinets against it, you might get that 1-inch overhang. With you so far? Okay. And then to do the upper cabinets, so we have 18 inches between the countertop and the upper cabinets. So again, I'm going to use my tape measure tool. I'm clicking T on my keyboard to get that. And then I'm going to use the line of the countertop here, click on that and pull upward. And 18 inches. So that gives me a nice starting point where I can then start to draw my cabinets. You can use either your rectangle tool or your pencil tool, whichever is easier for you to use. And then I have here that your upper cabinets can vary the height of them, just kind of depending on what you'd like for your design. If we think about it, we've got our 36-inch countertop and then 18 inches, so they're starting at 4.5 feet. Maybe you want it to go up to 7 feet, so then you have 2.5 feet of upper cabinets. Maybe you just want 24 inches, whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and make mine 2 feet. I'll type 2 feet, enter. Oh my goodness, I didn't put the depth of the upper cabinet. They're usually somewhere between 12 and 18 inches. I'm going to make mine 12 inches. So I'll go over 12, back down at 2 feet, and bring it back to my starting point. Just go ahead and erase that guideline there because I don't need it anymore. And then I'll double click that surface that I've created, right click, and make a group. And then I can go into this group, push pull that surface, again to align with the edge of my base cabinet. And then one thing we haven't done just yet, we haven't created a tag for our casework. So I'm going to go ahead over to my tags panel, hit the plus sign to give us a new tag, and then call it casework or millwork or built-ins, whatever works for you. I tend to call it casework. And then I'm just going to move the groups themselves. So I'm holding down Control to continue clicking and adding to my selection. So I'm going to move those 3 groups that I've created up in my entity info, use the tag drop down, and I'll change that to casework. Let's make sure that works. So now if I turn off my casework tag, yep, those disappear. Okay, and now from here, I'm going to start to build my individual cabinets that go within kind of this overall space that I've created. I'm going to go ahead and put, let's see here, I made it 5 feet wide, so I'm going to go ahead and just create 5 cabinets. So I'll double click into my base cabinet group to start here. And I'm going to use the divide function that we learned when we created our stairs. I think that was 2 weeks ago. So I want 5 equal spaces here in my cabinet. So we know the linear array tool, so maybe you could use that here. In that instance, we had a starting point and an ending point. We copied it to the ending point, and then we did the / and how many copies you wanted. So then that would give you your individually spaced cabinets. Or we could use the divide function. And what that'll do is any line that you select, you can right click and hit divide. And then we're just going to divide that line into however many segments we want. So I want 5 segments, so I'm just if you just drag your cursor along that line, it'll start to divide it into equally spaced segments for you. So once I find that 5 segments, it tells me that each one is going to be 1 foot in length. So then I'll just click to finish that. And now that line should be separated into 5 equal spaces. And then from there you could draw your lines here at those points. Whichever way works better for you. That's the cool thing about SketchUp is there's usually more than one way to get something done. So just whatever you find easiest for your own workflow. And then from here, I'm going to start to create kind of that shell space inside of the base cabinets. So this is going to be a pretty similar process like whenever we created our bookshelf, or our bookcase. So we're going to create that shell space inside. So I'm going to go for the offset tool. And like we talked about, usually the parts and pieces when they're building cabinets, they're usually each about 3/4 of an inch. It's a piece of plywood with plastic laminate on it. So I'm going to go ahead and offset each of these 3/4 of an inch, and that'll kind of give me my side panels in the top and bottom. So with my offset tool, I just clicked on that surface and started to pull inward, and then type either 3/4 or 0.75. And then you should be able to just double click each of your remaining surfaces, and SketchUp will remember that you did 3/4 of an inch. So if you just double click those surfaces with the offset tool, it should just basically repeat that same command. And then we'll go ahead and use the push-pull tool to extrude these inner surfaces back. And our base cabinets were 24 inches deep. So if I want to leave just 3/4 of an inch on the back side, then I'm going to push-pull this back 23 1/4. So I'm going to type 23.25, enter. And that should get us back there. And again, you should be able to just double click those other surfaces and they'll automatically push back for you. All right, and then maybe you want to add some shelving inside of your base cabinets. So again, we can do just like we did with our bookcase. We can go ahead and grab this rectangle that's our base of our cabinet here. So I just double clicked it to grab the surface plus all of its lines and edges. And then if you use the linear array tool here, so I'm hitting M on my keyboard for move, and then clicking Control for copy. I'll copy that to my furthest known point, so that would be the top of my base cabinet. And then if I immediately type the / and however many copies I wanted, so if I wanted 2 shelves, then I need to type 3 because the copy we just made is going to be that 3rd copy. I should copy them each. You can go ahead and you can either double click each of these and copy them to your other cabinets. Maybe you want to give them a little bit more detail before you copy them around, so you can give them some thickness. I guess everybody knows how to do that at this point. So next I'm going to go ahead and create our cabinets. And those are again going to be 3/4 of an inch typically. So I'm going to go ahead and start outside of my base cabinet group. That'll be a little bit easier since I'm going to create a rectangle across this whole thing. I just want to avoid some of that stickiness effect. So I'm going to go ahead and be outside of my group here. Now I'll grab my rectangle tool and hit R on my keyboard. I'm going to create a rectangle across one of these base cabinets, from top to bottom. And I'm going to double click this surface that I just created to grab its surface and its edges. I'm actually going to go ahead and make this one a component because I know that I'm going to copy this one around multiple times. So if I change one, it's going to change them all. I want all of my cabinets to look the same. So I'm going to make them a component. I'll call this base cabinet. Replace selection with component is checked. So that'll be great. Now I'll go ahead and move that component from untagged to casework. And then I'm going to double click into it to start to add some detail here. So first I'll use the push-pull tool to give it some thickness. Do 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll go ahead and copy this around to my other 4 base cabinets. So grab that component, M for move, Control for copy. And then I'm just going to grab a point that I'll easily be able to copy around. So I grabbed this back corner here so that I can just easily find the next place that I want it to line up with. And I'll just copy that to each of my 4 base cabinets. And now if I double click into one of them, it can be any one of them, it doesn't have to be the original one. And now as I start to edit this one, it'll edit all of my cabinets. So maybe you just want to add some detail to your cabinets here. I'll go ahead and revisit the autofold command, which was what we looked at to create kind of that group effect. It might have been either 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we could pull a surface upward, and it kind of created that that diagonal line. Probably easier to explain if I just go ahead and do it. So I'm going to go ahead and offset my cabinet here. I think the first time, maybe I'll just do maybe 3 inches. And I think my next one, I'll just do 1 inch. Again, this is just kind of the part where you can start designing, so I'm just showing you an option. You definitely don't have to make all of your cabinets look the same as I am. So with the AutoFold, what that kind of concept was, when you try to move a surface, it'll only move kind of in the plane that it's already in. So I can't move this plane outward at all. It only wants to stay in that same plane that it's already in. So AutoFold kind of overrides that coplanar effect. So to do that, I'm still with my Move tool. I just click the Alt key. And now what that allows me to do is move that plane, or move that surface outside of its plane. And so you can see it's pulling it outward, and stickiness is helping me to bring all of those edges outward as well. So that's called the AutoFold. And maybe I'll just bring it out a 1/2 inch. So now I've got kind of this nice little detail on my cabinets here. And I could have done that either outward or inward. It works the same way if I were to try and move it backward. You can also move it kind of inset inside the cabinet. There's that little detail there. And then maybe this becomes glass or something so you can see into the base cabinets. So that's just an option. And then we'll also want to create some hardware, some poles for your cabinets, or maybe you're creating drawers. For the hardware, you can definitely model your own. I think I'm just going to go ahead and find one on the 3D Warehouse. So for that, we go up to Window and 3D Warehouse. What do I need to say? Alright, so in 3D Warehouse, maybe I'll just search for handle. Let's see what I can find here. And this thing's going slow. Okay. Lots of options here. This one's kind of nice. You just hit that download button and it'll ask you if you want to load this into your SketchUp model, and I'll say yes. And then in comes that handle. I'm going to go ahead and move it to my casework tag. It's kind of in a funny position here, so I'm going to have to use my rotate tool to get it on the face that I want. So I'll hit Q on my keyboard. And then again, here's where you can use those arrows to find the correct axis that'll help you rotate it into place. And once I find that, I'm holding down Shift to keep that locked. Create a starting point, specify that axis, and then I'll rotate it up 90 degrees. And I actually think I want it to be inside of my cabinet component. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to just copy this handle, so Control C for copy, And then I'm going to double click into my cabinet component and then Control V, and that'll bring it now inside of my group. And you can see now that I'm inside of my group, it has put it on all of my components. I might need to do a little bit of work here to get the correct surface on here. Just go ahead and move it into place. Start here at the very top. And I think make it maybe 1.5 inches from the top of my cabinet. Maybe another 1.5 inches inward. So go ahead and delete that original one. So now you have yourself some nice cabinets. And then let's just go ahead and do the top together as well so that we can practice. So whichever way you liked to create your division here, double click into my upper cabinet group here. I'll just go ahead and use the linear array. And actually now I know that each of my cabinets was 1 foot, so maybe I'll try the other way for linear array, where I specify the distance between rather than the starting and ending point. You could really do either way. I'll just go ahead and, just so that we remember the other way to do it. So I am copying this line, copying it 1 foot, and then rather than the forward slash, this time I'm going to hit X and the number of copies that I want. So I made 5 total copies here. That includes your original. And now we can basically just do the same steps over. So we created the shelf space first with our offset tool. We left 3/4 of an inch offset here. Use the push-pull tool. And these are 12 inches deep, so this time we only need to do 11 1/4 inch. Oops, and I probably should offset all of them first. And then push-pull. I'm just double clicking the rest of those. SketchUp should remember what we just did with that tool. And then again, if you wanted to add any cabinets in here, or I'm sorry, any shelves in here, go ahead and just use this base as my shelf. Maybe this one, I'll just copy it to the midpoint. SketchUp should snap to the midpoint for you. And then if I wanted to add the thickness, do the 3/4 inch thick. Make sure you grab that whole thing. You're going to copy it to your other cabinets. It might be a good idea to create a component out of your shelf here. If you plan to make modifications to it, just so that if you change one, it'll change all of them. And let's see if I can use the scale tool on my component, my base cabinet component, rather than having to do the whole thing over again. Let's go ahead and try copying one of these cabinets to the top here. And you can see it's a little bit big. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it unique, because I don't want any modifications that I make to this one to happen to all of these other components down here. So to make it a unique component and kind of sever the tie between this one and the other 5, I'll right-click the component and make unique. And what that should have done to your name over here, your component's name, it's now base cabinet number 1. So that does tell me that it's no longer tied to those other base cabinets. And I'm going to go ahead and change the name to upper cabinet. Alright, so now anything that I do to this one should not affect those base cabinets. So the first thing that I'm going to do is double click into here and move my handle down to the bottom so that people can still reach it. I'll just go ahead and grab the corner of that, move it down all the way to the bottom, and then I'm just going to move it back up 1.5 inches to match that distance that I had on these base cabinets. So the next thing that I want to do is scale this. So I don't think I want to scale my handle. I want to keep that handle the same as all the other ones. So let's actually, this might be a little bit of a test here for me. I'm going to double click back into that component. And I just want to scale the cabinet itself rather than that handle. I'm going to go ahead and triple click here so that I grab everything except for that handle. It shouldn't have grabbed my handle because it's in its own component, so it's kind of isolated. And I'll grab the scale tool. You can hit S on your keyboard. And then I just want it to scale along the blue axis. I just want it to be shorter. I'm going to go ahead and grab this top center grip, start to pull that downward, and then eventually line it up with the top of my upper cabinet here. And that way we scale the cabinet, but the door handle is left at the correct size. And now I can just go ahead and copy these around to my other cabinets. Make sure you're being nice and accurate with where you're placing those cabinets. Make sure you are indeed snapping to those corners. And then we can even revisit the flip tool here. All of our cabinets right now are opening with the hinges on the left. Maybe you want it so that some of your cabinets, you can grab each handle together and kind of open them outwardly. So we can use the flip tool to flip some of these around. So I'll grab this component. And your flip tool is the one that looks like a house that's being divided. And that'll pull up your different axes here. And then you just want to click on the axis that you want to flip around. So in this case, I think I want the green, so I just clicked that green, and now you can see that my component flipped. So now I can open those cabinets inward to outward. Maybe I'll go ahead and flip this one as well. So I select that component, grab your flip tool. If it's not there, you can again go up to Tools and Flip. And then just select the axis that you want to flip it around or mirror it. nice set of uppers and lowers. Let's see here, let's try and do maybe like they have here over the laundry unit. Maybe we just create some open shelving. And test that one out. So we're going to be in this back little area. I'm going to start it at the same place. I want them to be the same height as my uppers here, just so it looks nice and uniform across. So I'll just go ahead and create some guidelines to make sure that I'm making them all the same height. So I'm going to grab my tape measure tool. I'm going to click on that line here where my upper cabinets start, and then I'm just going to click on it again to leave that guideline in its place. So now you can see that guideline has stretched across here, so I can see where I want to start my upper cabinet. And then I'll go ahead and do the same for the top of the upper cabinet. Click on that line, and then bring it back down to create that other guideline. Now I have a pretty nice area ready for me. I'm hitting R for the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to create a rectangle across that whole space here. Make sure you find those intersections of the wall and the guidelines. And then once that surface is created, I'm just going to go ahead, double click it, and make my group now. Move that group from untagged to casework. And then I'll double click into the group to start making my modifications. You could do it a couple of ways. You can either extrude the whole thing now, and then kind of make your details, and then extrude back kind of those open shelf areas. Or you could draw all of your line work now, and then just extrude the parts forward that won't be part of your open shelving. I think I'll go ahead and do the latter. So I'll go ahead and draw all of my line work now. The first thing I'm going to do is use the offset tool to create those sides, top and bottom. So I'll go ahead and offset 3/4 of an inch. And then I think I want to do just like they have here with just one shelf in the middle. So using my line tool, I'll go ahead and find the midpoint here. SketchUp should snap to the midpoint of this line. And I'll draw a line across here. Then I'll go ahead and copy this 3/4 of an inch to create the thickness of that shelf. And if we want to go ahead and erase these lines just so that it comes out all together as one single surface, we can now extrude that whole thing together. And I'll extrude the same 12 inches to be the same depth as our kitchen cabinets. Pretty easy open cabinet there. What do we think? Do we feel okay about going forward and keep on creating our own cabinets?
Yeah, so are we like required to have like the stove and the refrigerator?
Not yet. We'll get to that later.
Okay.
So just focus on your cabinetry right now.
Okay.
Yeah, all of this extra stuff like the furniture, the appliances, the sink, don't worry about it right now.
So
don't
we'll just
even
like
worry.
scale that down on a different assignment?
I'm sorry?
Well, just for like this base planning aspect of like making all the cabinets, like shouldn't we know where the
Oh, I
fridge
see what
and
you
stove
mean.
is?
Yeah, you might leave some space there, for a refrigerator.
But can we put it in if we want to this week?
Sure, if you want to, if it helps you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Even like materials and stuff, don't worry about that just yet. We're gonna do lots of material work next week. So don't worry too much about any of the extra stuff unless you find it helpful for you right now. We really just wanna fill this wall with our cabinets, or our built-ins, I should say. It doesn't necessarily have to be cabinets.